Hello, BGSU. I'm Zach Carrion here in the Cooling Center studios bringing you your Falcon Sports Report. BG basketball will hit the court tonight, coming off a huge game over the weekend. Reporter Ryan Strobeck has the details.
The annual Bill Frack Challenge took to the hardwood once again this year as the Bowling Green State University Falcons took on the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles in a tightly contested battle. The Eagles came in with the second best road win streak in the NCAA with 10 in a row, while the Falcons were looking to capture their second victory to begin this season. It was a back-and-forth matchup throughout the game. Heading into the locker room, the Eagles went up 43-40. In the second half, it was even more tightly contested as there were 7 lead changes. Bowling Green, however, held a 6-point lead with just over a minute to go in the game. The Eagles came soaring back and tied the game up with just 5.3 seconds left. That was just enough time as the Falcons went down the court and Dylan Fry drilled a three-pointer with 0.9 seconds left to give the Falcons the victory. Both teams moved to 2-1 on the year. For BG24 Sports, I'm Ryan Strobeck.
Switching gears to a team that hasn't had a ton of success this year, BG football concludes its schedule tomorrow in Eastern Michigan with a chance to win just its third game of the season. Sports Director Garrett McKinney recaps the disappointing year.
Bowling Green football looked like it was on its way to becoming a consistently dominant team in the MAC with 8 wins in 2012 and 2014 and 10 wins in 2013 and 2015. But following their win in the 2015 MAC championship game, then head coach Dino Babers accepted an offer at Syracuse University, taking the bulk of his coaching staff with him. Since then, under the direction of head coach Mike Jinks, the program has been reeling with back-to-back seasons with 4 wins or less. The season began with a hard-fought but understandable loss at Michigan State. The Falcons showed fight and Coach Jinks felt confident in his team.
I felt like as a coaching staff, we got our football team ready to play. We got to get ready to win. And that's in that kind of environment against that kind of opponent, because we have that potential. So excited about the energy in which they played. Long way to go, a lot of things to fix, but we're moving in the right direction.
But the following game, FCS opponent South Dakota came out swinging. The Falcons found themselves down 21-3 early and were never able to recover. BG managed to close the gap to within a score but couldn't fight all the way back. The final score saw the Falcons lose by 8, 35-27. The next game saw another Big Ten opponent in the Northwestern Wildcats. An early score from the Falcons proved to be their only in a 49-7 rout by Northwestern. This game marked the first in which Coach Jinks experimented with a change under center. Surprisingly, true freshman Jarrett Dagey lost his red shirt in the second half and looked promising. Jinks, clearly frustrated with the offense, vowed to have a quarterback competition moving forward.
If we continue to have some of the same struggles that we had, that we were going to look at inserting him because he's performed well in practice and he deserves the opportunity. And moving forward, we will have a competition.
Moving into Week 4, Dagey became the first true freshman to start at quarterback for the Falcons since Brian McClure in 1982. The Falcons kept the game close but ultimately dropped 24-13. The Falcons would face their first MAC opponent of the year in Week 5 when they took on the Akron Zips. For the second week in a row, the Falcons would be competitive but end up on the wrong side of the scoreboard, dropping their first MAC game of the year 34-23. Bowling Green headed down to Oxford, Ohio for their next MAC opponent in Miami, a team in which many thought would compete with Ohio for the MAC East title. The game was a battle with both teams going back and forth, but the Falcons prevailed to win their first game of the year after a late fumble returned for a touchdown by Bowling Green. BG won 37-29. After earning their first victory of the year, the Falcons would come back to Dwight Perry Stadium and face off against Ohio on homecoming weekend. It was a tightly contested first half that led to an 18-point win for Ohio. Northern Illinois would be the next opponent on the schedule for Bowling Green. This game was all Huskies from the start, and when the final seconds ticked off, the Huskies would come out victorious 48-17. The Falcons would travel to Kent State in Week 9 to take on the Golden Flashes on Halloween night. It was the first of the midweek MACtion games for the Falcons. Dagey came back from injury and looked impressive as the Falcons took home the win 44-16. Following their second win of the season, the Falcons traveled to New York to take on the Bulls of Buffalo. The Falcons were holding on late in the fourth quarter before Buffalo pulled away with a late touchdown to seal the game. The Falcons dropped to 2-8 on the season. Following the loss to Buffalo, the Falcons took on their bitter rival, the Toledo Rockets, in the Battle of I-75. Bowling Green was keeping things interesting at halftime, with Toledo narrowly leading by a score of 24-21. In the second half, though, it was all Toledo, as the Rockets came away with a 66-37 victory. The Falcons fall to a disappointing 2-9 on the year, with one game left at Eastern Michigan tomorrow night. Reporting for BG24 Sports, I'm Garrett McKinney.
This weekend in Oxford, the number 2 seeded BG women's volleyball team came in as the favorite against Western Michigan in the MAC tournament semifinal. Despite winning the first set of the match versus the Broncos, Bowling Green lost by a score of 3-1, while Western Michigan advanced to the final to play the eventual champion Miami Redhawks. In the loss, senior Nicole Slimko, junior Isabel Kovacic, and sophomore Jessie Hawley each tallied double-digit kills against the Broncos. Although they failed to reach the tournament final, the season isn't over yet for the Falcons. After having one of the best seasons in nearly a decade, the ladies will have a chance at the National Invitational Volleyball Championship starting this Sunday. Yesterday at the Stroh, BG women's basketball suffered its first loss of the season against Canisius College. The Falcons had control in the first half and went into the locker room with a 4-point lead. In the second half, BG was unable to get as many of their shots to fall, while Canisius was able to construct their comeback. The cold shooting night proved to be too much for the Falcons, who only put up 18 second-half points. At the final buzzer, BG fell to the Griffins by a score of 71-57. On the court, point guard Sydney Lambert led the way for the Falcons once again with a team-high 12 points and 3 assists. Next up for the Falcons is a weekend road trip to Boca Raton for the Florida Atlantic University Thanksgiving Tournament. The Falcons will play 2 games during the weekend, with a Friday afternoon game versus Norfolk State and a Saturday match with St. Francis Brooklyn. Tip-off for the first game is at 2:30. After a successful weekend at the Slater Family Ice Arena against Lake Superior State, BG Falcon Hockey traveled to Mankato, Minnesota to take on the number 5 team in the nation, Minnesota State. Game 1 started with 2 quick goals from the Mavericks in the first period, but they were answered by Stephen Bayless on the power play in the second. The Falcons couldn't respond again as they fell 6-1. Eric Dopp was in goal for the first 40 minutes in his second loss of the year and allowed the first 5 Maverick goals. BG looked for redemption the next night and found it, with 2 Alec Rawhauser goals and a Mitch McLean goal, as well as a Max Johnson goal. The Falcons exploded for a 4-1 win. Rawhauser also added an assist for a 3-point night, while Cameron Wright and Stephen Bayless provided 2 assists each. After the big win against Minnesota State, Bowling Green comes back home for a weekend series versus Miami on November 24th and 25th. That's all for your Falcon Sports Report. Check in again on Friday for more updates and stories about your favorite Falcon teams.